Hello, my guest now is Megan Fox. She is an investigative journalist and author of Believe Evidence, The Death of Due Process from Salome to Me Too. And you have women crossed out here on the cover, so can you explain what's this book about?
Well, the feminists want us to believe women, believe all women all the time for every reason, and I don't believe that that's smart or wise. And I think it also deletes our due process, because we are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So if a woman comes forward in this age of Me Too and she says that I was assaulted or groped or whatever, that's fine, but she needs to also bring evidence with her. And also, I believe that those charges need to be brought in a court of law and not the court of public opinion, where no one is really getting any information. We don't really know what happened. So it started when Judge Kavanaugh was accused by Christine Blasey Ford of allegations of 30 years ago. And she had no corroborating witnesses, and she had no evidence, just her story, just her truth. And there is no my truth or your truth. There's only one truth. Either someone assaulted you or they didn't. And in order to prove it, you need evidence that can be presented in court. I'm seeing that a lot of these feminists who want us to believe that all men are predators come forward with allegations that don't have any evidence. So I wanted to look into that more and see what I found throughout history.
Can you give us some examples?
Sure. So I went back all the way to the beginning of human history. I started in the Bible to find out what is the nature of women. What is the nature? Is it different than men? Are women somehow more superior? Do they make better choices? And I think I can safely say, no, they do not. Because throughout human history, women and men lie to whenever they want to in order to advance their own purposes. For instance, Jezebel in the Bible. She lied about Naboth, who was a man who had a vineyard next to her castle, and she wanted it. And instead of buying it from him, she had him murdered in order to take it. That is an early example, and she is the most wicked woman in the Bible. I think she's known as the most wicked person in the Bible, because she didn't only do that, she also went after the prophets of God and had them slaughtered and murdered. Because she was a pagan and she didn't want them in her land. Going forward to Joseph, Potiphar's wife, the story of Joseph, when he was taken into captivity and he was given a job working for Potiphar. His wife wanted a sexual relationship with him, and he wouldn't give in to her. And so she grabbed his coat and she fabricated evidence that he had raped her. And he was thrown into prison for that. So we have all these stories, and moving up a lot further, the Salem witch trials is a great example of women lying and sending people to the gallows. In that case, women and men and a few animals were killed because of one woman's obsession with a man she wanted who was married. And so she targeted his wife with an allegation of witchcraft. So women are not any different than anyone else.
We're not a superior gender, sex.
We're human beings, and human nature says that we are all equally capable of being good or being evil, depending on our choices. The second part of the book is about the modern age, and I talk about women who have lied to put men in prison or worse. The Scottsboro Boys is a terrible story of a dark time in our history in Alabama, where 9 black boys were accused of rape by 2 white women. I think they wanted attention. The stories are so terrible. They were very poor women, poor white women, and they loved the attention that they got from the upper society, upper class people who had never given them the time of day, because they had caused this big scene in Alabama. Well, 9 boys were almost lynched by lynch mobs because of this travesty. In 3 days, they were tried and convicted of a crime they had nothing to do with. There was no crime committed. It took years and years to exonerate these men, and their lives were never the same. And we should never go back to a time in our history where we are taking the word of some woman against anyone because of what we've already seen happen. Going even further than that, we have Tawana Brawley. I think most people are very aware of that story, that Tawana Brawley was a 15-year-old victim of abuse. She had a very rough family life, and she was taken advantage of by race hustlers who used her story of trying to get out of trouble for being out all night and saying, oh, I was attacked, I was raped. A bunch of race hustlers came in, Al Sharpton and all of these people who benefit politically from racial tension, and stirred up such a terrible situation between the black and white community, blaming a white police officer and several other white men in the community. One of them killed themselves. He killed himself. He committed suicide because the strain of it was so bad. And these were innocent men. It turned out later she had made up the story. Now, Tawana at the time, she was very young, and it's hard to be angry with a child who grew up in a bad situation. But the people around her did nothing to help it. So again, we need to look for evidence. The last part of the book too, I have 3 children. I have a teenager, my youngest is 5, and I have one in the middle. And I also spent some time when I saw Brett Kavanaugh, crying for his life, basically. What if that were my son? What if it were my husband? What if it were my brother? I believe that all men deserve due process. And so at the end of my book, I do talk about, as parents, what can we do to help our daughters not become women who would lie about a man, and how do we help our sons harpy-proof themselves? And some of my advice is keep records, all text messages. Do not go out on dates, on solo dates, only double dating. It's Mike Pence, who has just spoken right here. His rules of life will work. Don't be in a room alone with a woman who isn't your wife. It sounds crazy, right? It sounds like evangelical craziness, but that's what we've been brought to. We need chaperones again in order to be safe, from false accusation. Did you hear about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard scenario that just came out?
I have not heard about
She had been accusing him for years of abusing her, beating her, and was in the press about it. And he released audio tapes of her admitting that she has been hitting him for years, that she has been throwing pots and pans at him. She cut off the tip of his finger. And this was a woman who had the Me Too crowd behind her. So we need to wait for the evidence, because sometimes it's not what you think.
It seems like there's a fine balance there, because sometimes there may be no evidence, right?
That's right, and I also address that in the book. As women, we have a responsibility to teach our daughters that if they are ever accosted, raped, abused, they need to come forward immediately. And they need to be told in no uncertain terms that every day you wait, you are walking further away from justice. If you want justice, you must take the steps it requires. And that means collecting evidence, actual evidence. Scratch like heck. Get evidence under your fingernails if you have to. Think about these things. Don't take a shower. It's all in here. How to go to the police. Do not take a shower if you've been assaulted. Do not be embarrassed to come forward to your parents, even if you were in a bad situation and you were doing something you shouldn't have done. We have to tell our kids this, because the longer they wait, the less likely they are to get justice. And of course we want our daughters to get justice. Of course we want women to get it, but they have to come forward immediately.
Yeah, well, I guess first we should teach them how not to be in those situations.
That's right, and that's kind of controversial, right? Because I heard someone the other day, a feminist, saying that's such old-fashioned thinking, that we are somehow responsible for our assaults. That's not really the language I would use. I don't think we are responsible if we're assaulted, but there are steps you can take to make sure you're not in as much danger. Now, you might not be able to get rid of all of the danger, but let's go over a few things you can do. For one, do not get drunk at parties. Do not drink to get drunk. I have a chapter in here about teaching your child how to drink at a party. There are tips and tricks that you can use to not stand out, but not be drinking. Dark-colored beer bottles are great for this. You can drink one beer and go fill it up with water, and when next time someone says, would you like a drink? I already have one, thank you. And that way you don't have to say, I'm not drinking. But there's ways to gracefully get out of those situations. Don't be at a party alone. Go with friends and make a pact that you will not leave without your friend. No one will leave this party with other people that they didn't come with. And another thing is never leave your drink unattended. We know that date rape drugs are a real serious thing. So never, ever let anyone open your drink other than the bartender and watch him do it. And don't leave your drink for any reason. Don't let a man buy you a drink and bring it to you. You have to be in control of your own stuff. Chrissy Hines, who's a great musician, also came forward a while ago to say she had some responsibility in what happened to her. She was in a terrible assault by bikers, and she said, if I had not gone out that night and to that bar I went to, knowing it was a dangerous place and wearing what I was wearing, which was not appropriate, it might not have happened. Now, that doesn't mean it wouldn't have. And we're not saying, people, they love to say, oh, well, we're blaming the victim because she was wearing a short skirt. No, but know where you're going. Know who your audience is, and be careful.
And if you are wearing something that's revealing and you want to look cute and flirty, you will bring that
attention
to yourself, and you have to be able to.
Of course, it's not a license for anyone to touch you inappropriately. It's not a license. But if you're doing that, you need to know you should have some very good friends with you who are probably male and large and can stay with you and watch out for you.
Right. And it's not also, especially if you're going into a place with alcohol, there's going to be men who are not thinking clearly. They may not.
Right, their boundaries are going to be lowered, and this is why staying away from these drunken parties is the best idea, and not drinking in these situations is the best idea. And for men, frankly, these days, I don't know what makes it worthwhile to get involved with a woman who is not your wife. There is nothing you can do. I joke that maybe you should bring consent forms to college to make sure if you are going to act outside of marriage, which you should probably not do, but if you are going to, get a consent form, get her on video, get her, to tell you that this is all consensual. But even that will work against you at some point. There's a case right now in Ohio of 2 football players accused of rape. I don't know if they did it yet, but they did have a consent video. The prosecutor is saying, well, it was forced. So now it might, though, have been they tried to get this consent so that they were protected, and that doesn't work either. So we're really at a crossroads where men dating is very, very difficult.
So basically, yeah,
Right?
wait till you know that you're committed to
Wait
her.
till you're married. I mean, it's even then, I mean, it is much, much safer if you are contractually bound to someone and you've made it this is your life decision with someone. It just seems like not worth as much trouble anymore to have casual sex or to be in these types of positions.
And I also wanted to bring up that sort of underlying all of this is that parents really need to develop a good relationship with their children, and one where they're able to accept, be merciful and kind even when the children make mistakes, because children will make mistakes, and you have to practice your mercy and building a good relationship with them, so then when it really is a difficult situation, they will come to you
And that
first.
is tough, right? Because that is why a lot of these women say they didn't come forward, because they were afraid of being in trouble. They were afraid of parental disapproval. So as a parent, my heart aches for my own children because I want them to know they can come to me about anything. And I hope that I've spoken to them enough about that. And I have told my oldest daughter too, if you're ever in a situation and you know you shouldn't be there or something bad is happening, all you have to do is text me. I'll come get you. And I won't even ask you about it. If you don't want to talk to me about it, that's okay too. Because as long as they have the wherewithal to call you and to get out of trouble, I think that's good. I think this is a dangerous world. It's scary for parents, very scary. So I'm hoping that I've given some good advice to, combat some of it. But I want our due process back. I want the idea of innocence before guilt.
Right, that culturally we should not condemn someone without evidence. We can still be empathetic to the suffering that, any woman who brings forth an accusation like that, she's probably suffering on some level for sure. But we don't need to rush to judge or accuse the person she's accused until she can really show. And if she can't show...
It's better that 10 guilty men go free than one innocent man lose his liberty. And that, to me, is the basis of this philosophy. Our justice system is built on it, and without it, it crumbles. And we don't have justice at all. I'm interested in real justice, and sometimes that does mean that a guilty man will walk free. But that's okay, because it's better than the alternative, which is innocent men losing their liberty, which is the worst thing that can happen to a person, is to lose their liberty. So I'm concerned about it. We have a problem in this country with it right now.
Thank you so much for having this conversation with me today. And yeah, it's a very important topic.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Nice to meet you.